for altar tending and altar building and altar tending. So after this is done, if you guys want to share, share your altar, share how it's going, share your thoughts, ask questions, I'll be on there and I'll be answering things like that. But would be lovely to see you guys get to know one another and help support one another, and also hold each other a little bit accountable for doing those habits, right? We're better at creating habits in groups than we are alone. So that's part of that. So I'm going to go ahead and officially, unless you guys have any questions, I'm going to go ahead and officially start the recording. So this will be the part that I won't edit out from now until the very end. Does anybody have any questions or anything before I start that? Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do a little bit of a dedication and call in spirit for us for this session. So I'm going to ask you guys to mute for that. So go ahead and do that. So thanks for joining. And if you like, you can close your eyes. This will be a little bit in the imaginal realm. Kind of settle in and find a relaxed position. And take a nice deep breath. Just grounding for a moment and feeling your body, sensing the weight of it, where it connects to the surface below you. And I want you to imagine a field outdoors, any kind of field at all. And in the middle of that field, in the center, is a nice big fire, a controlled, sacred fire. And connect with your mind to that element of fire, welcoming the sacred fire. And now imagine that there's water flowing around. Also, maybe in a circle, however you imagine it is exactly right. There's a flow of water near the fire, connecting the elements of water. And imagining yourself there, near the fire, near the water, and connect in with the earth that you're standing on or sitting on. Connecting with the sacred elements of earth. And imagining a gentle breeze of clean air moving around, connecting with the sacred elements of air. And now imagine that the group, all of us on this call, are in a circle around the fire. And now leave space for all those people who will come and watch this later, knowing that in the spiritual realm, in the imaginal realm, there's no time. And so all the folks that will watch this, past, present, and future, are all in this circle together. And send your feeling of love, of open-heartedness, of gratitude to all those people in that circle. Feeling appreciation for their support, for their presence, for their holding space. And now open and imagine that you're receiving love, from everyone in the circle, past, present, and future. Opening up to receiving their love, their gratitude, their support, and holding space just for you. And now another circle forms around the circle of people, calling in your spirit guides, spirit helpers, angels, and ancestors, known or unknown, calling them in to form a supportive circle outside the circle of people. In this circle of guides, helpers, angels, and ancestors, also for the individuals here on this call, as well as everyone watching, past, present, and future. And these guides, these helpers, angels, and ancestors are there to hold sacred space, to offer guidance and wisdom, love and healing. And we ask Spirit to help us form a loving and supportive community. We ask for guidance and support in building connections with one another and with our spirit guides. We ask for help creating open, clear communication with our individual spirit helpers so that we can be guided to live our lives as our best selves. And open now to receiving any and all love and appreciation, healing messages, whatever comes now and in the future from Spirit. Opening to receiving that, opening to understanding it, opening to any assistance that comes our way. And now offering gratitude to the spirit helpers that have come, offering our thanks and trusting them and trusting the process, knowing that their support is there and is available to us now and always. So appreciating and saying thank you to all the elements in this sacred place, knowing that you can come individually at any time to this place with the elements, with the support of one another, and with the support of the spiritual circle. You can come now and any time to this place to receive, to ask for help, or to simply bask in the spiritual side of our community. And taking a deep breath in, exhale and open your eyes, coming back into the moment, back into the room. Thank you, guys. So the subject for the call today is creating an altar. And the reason for doing that is to build relationship with your spirit guides. And in order to do, the best way to do that is to have a regular daily practice and to show up and really foster that. In the same way that you get better at meditating, the more you meditate, the better you learn a language, the more you study and practice it. the same is true with showing up for spirit. And an altar is a way of anchoring that daily practice in a mundane physical way, a place that you actually go to in the physical world, and sit in some meditation and foster that relationship. Um, so that's kind of one of the main reasons for having an altar. And it builds connection. It builds also a really beautiful practice and a habit of getting to know your spirit guides, getting to know what it feels like when you're with them. And so if you spend just a little bit of time doing that, you get to over time build what I think of it as an energy signature. Other folks might hear it as a voice, a feeling, even a physical vibration. Everybody experiences it a little bit differently. But if you have that anchor and you spend that time connecting in specifically with the intention of connecting with your spirit guide, then you begin to really notice what it feels like when that spirit guide comes in. And then over time, as that relationship is fostered and you get to know it more and more, then you'll get to recognize it when it's coming in your everyday life, and get to know that, how to call on it, how to recognize when it's there, how to notice when you're getting messages and things like that. So it's a really great way of connecting and starting that habit for yourself, and opening up that energetic sort of realm of being able to connect, and how to open that, what it feels like when you open it, what it feels like when you're receiving. And then from there, you can really ask for different things. You can foster protection. You can ask for, sense of purpose in your life and your day. Um, it can be used for all different kinds of things in the future. You can use it as a way of reflecting the seasons, connecting in that way, putting different things on your altar that show the passing of time in the world, like seasonally, or also in your own life when you have a project starting or you're in the middle or the end. You can use your altar as this ongoing energetic place where things are fluid and where it reflects your needs, your wants, where you're at, where you're going, as well as connecting in to spiritual support for that. Um, and you want to think of it as building a friendship. So we're all tempted in the beginning to jump in and start asking for things, right? But think of it as a new friend, and you wouldn't call up a new friend and every time you make a call you're asking for something. Can you do this for me, right? Um, and also when we're in that place of asking, we're in that place of expectation and hoping for a certain outcome, and that can also muddy the message that's coming through. So as we all know, expectations don't always turn out. Sometimes what we want isn't what's meant to be, and if we're sitting silently with spirit, we can get messages on that, and learn to recognize when we are going in a direction that's not going to work out, or that's not necessarily the best option for us. And we have free will, right? So we can still beat our head against that wall if we want to, and maybe we can even force it to happen. But with an opening to spirit and fostering that connection in a way that isn't so much asking as much as opening to receiving messages, then we can kind of flow with life and what's coming our way, and learn to make things easier for ourselves by not trying to force things, and especially if the odds are against us in that particular project or desire. So are there any questions on that so far? Okay, good deal. So I wanted to talk a little bit about spending time at the altar versus journeying and or meditating, or other, if people have other forms of getting into spirituality or spiritual realms. Um, One of the main differences is that at the altar, I like to joke that at the altar, you don't have to be altered. So when you journey, you're in an altered state, right? You're in an imaginal realm. You do certain things to get yourself to be in that realm. In the same way that with hypnosis, we have inductions and deepeners and things to bring you into that realm. At the altar, you can think of it as more of a conversation. You might start to feel a little bit altered, a little bit of a sense of sacred space and opening, and that's awesome. But you don't necessarily have to create that in order to spend time at that. And also, it's more of a daily use kind of practice. It's something that if you do every day, especially if you open your mornings with that, it really starts your day with a place of connection, of gratitude, of kind of taking a moment to think about your day and where you want it to go, especially energetically or spiritually, fostering those kinds of places if you're working on opening your heart, or not getting too involved with expectations, whatever your sort of goals are. It's a moment to sort of set that intention for the day with spirit there, and asking for support on that. um, so whereas journeying is more purposeful, instead of just being a practice for just setting up your day, in the same way that you brush your teeth and all the reasons that you do that in the morning. This is kind of helping you set up your day and connecting with spirit. Whereas when you're journeying or doing something like that, then you're getting altered and you have a specific intention. That's when you're asking a specific question, or maybe setting out up for a specific manifestation, something you want to create in your life, those sorts of things. So that's a little bit more designed for an outcome, whereas time at the altar is more designed just to open and to receiving, and whatever that looks like. Um, any questions on that so far? Okay. So one of the things, another benefit, or one of the things that with your altar, is to like I said, foster that daily habit, so that when you do, if and when you do journeying and other sorts of spiritual things, you already have that relationship. You know exactly what it feels like when that spirit guide comes in, and what style of information they come. I've worked with very humorous guides before that that have that sort of trickster vibe, where they want to bop me on the head a little bit and get me to turn in a different direction. And then there's the very serious ones. There's ones that work with a lot of metaphor, and you have to kind of figure out what exactly the information is that's coming. And some of them really like to work with synchronicity. There are definitely guides who don't give you answers in the moment that you ask them. So you ask that and you set that intention, and then you just keep your eyes open and watch for those kinds of synchronicities. So that altar time will help you develop what that relationship is like, and what information from that guide looks like. In the beginning, I always suggest that folks work with a single spirit guide, unless you already have a really strong connection to multiple spirits and you already know how to differentiate between them. If you do, then ignore this whole next suggestion. But for folks starting out, it's often really great to just start with one spirit guide. And that's because, just if you had 3 radio stations going at the same time, you're not going to understand any one of them. You're going to get bits and pieces, and they're not going to make sense, and it's going to be really hard to get to know that voice, or that, what I think of as an energy signature. So that if you work with one, if you start with one, you build that strong single connection. And then over time, if it feels like others are coming in, or you just want to see who else is out there, absolutely do that. But I always suggest starting out with one. Any questions on that? Who already has, just show of hands, who already has a connection with a spirit that they feel like they know or are getting to know? Okay, good. And who has journeying experience? Who has done a shamanic journey? Okay, all right, good. And what's the interest level? Because I leave this open. My background is in shamanism, but I also have Buddhist studies and a lot of other spiritual teachings in there. And so I like to leave it vague, because I don't want to force people into the construct of any one type. But I can and will do guided journeys and put those in Mighty Networks if that's something that you guys are interested in using journeying. So raise their hands who's interested in that. Okay, awesome, good deal. So we'll start with how to set up an altar. Actually, do we have any questions yet? Okay, so for an altar, you obviously want to find a spot first, a place to put it. preferably a place that you can use daily. Most folks are in the same place most of the time. If you happen to be very nomadic, then you might want to have one that's in something that you can move around. I've seen people create, the chess boards where you can open them up and they've got a little bit of hollow space. I've seen people travel with something like that they've made into an altar that they can travel with. So that's an idea if you already travel a lot. But you want to, when you're thinking about space, you want to find a space that you find a little bit of connection to, you find a little bit of sacredness with. It can be inside, it can be outside. But also consider privacy and how important that is to you. So in other words, if you are someone who likes to do, and we'll get into what you can do in front of your altar, but you can invoke spirit in your guides by singing, by dancing, by chanting, by drumming, or simply stating an intention. It doesn't have to be fancy. But if you're someone who really likes that more active style, and you're not someone who wants to do it outside in the garden where the neighbor can watch you while they're drinking their morning coffee out their back door, then consider not making it outside, unless you can put some, privacy barriers or something around. So when you're considering space, consider that. And I said I would also show my altar behind me, which I'll get into. And I will say this is in my living room, and 99% of the folks that I have in my home, I'm fine seeing it. There are occasional times where someone's coming in to do some ongoing work or something in my house who I don't feel comfortable with that. And I will say, because I've chosen to put it in my living room, I do end up having to take things down and move them. So just consider that too, especially if you end up with lots of little items that are a pain in the butt to move. Consider those things when you're thinking about where to place your altar. And some ideas, you'll see mine is an active bookshelf. So it also, I have to consider, sometimes I pull these actual books out to read again or to lend out and whatnot. So, but that it can be, you can clear a space in a bookcase. You can have a small little table or end table. You can even clear a space on the floor. It doesn't need to be on something. You can put it at the end of something. It doesn't need a whole dedicated piece of furniture. It can be the end of, or a section of a table or a shelf or something. It doesn't need to be big. It doesn't need to be fancy. But it just needs to be someplace that you are able to meet all of your needs. So again, if privacy is a need, what daylight, nighttime, whatever feels right to you. If you have it on the floor, I always suggest having a little bit of a blanket or a scarf, some kind of cloth that you can put on that kind of designates that piece of floor as something sacred. And you can also put a cloth over any piece of furniture just to kind of mark out that section, especially if you're using it for other things as well. And as far as privacy goes, I've also seen people that have them in a cabinet, just the kind of cabinet that you'd have in a bathroom or in a kitchen, or you can even, place one on a wall so that if you do want to put it in your living room, but but there's going to be people that you aren't necessarily interested in seeing it. It doesn't need to be open all the time. You can close it. And in fact, that can even be part of your sort of invocation in the morning is opening those doors is kind of one of the ways that you say, okay, I'm moving into that sacred space now. And any questions on that so far? Okay. So the next step is what you put on your altar. I always suggest having one item that represents your guide. And that can be anything. And that's something and we'll talk about this in a little bit. You want to, before you start the altar and you open the altar, you dedicate the altar, you want to spend a little bit of time planning just so that you can ask spirit and see what comes in for what they want on their altar, how they want to be represented. And if you aren't getting that information yet, that's 100% fine. There's no wrong way to do it. Spirit's never going to be upset with you that you put something on and it's not something they like. It's you put it there, you had all good intentions of this item representing my guide, and that's all that's needed. You'll hear me say often throughout any of my teachings that energy follows intention. So if you state a clear intention for this to be my altar, for this to be a place that I connect with my spirit guide, and this one object is the representative of that spirit guide. That's sort of the anchoring, the centering of that guide with that altar. You can have it be anything. It can be a stone, it can be a piece of wood, it can be, you know, an actual figure of a person or an animal. Speaking of animals, my dog is, one of them is up. We hope it won't be barking. Um, so then after that, then you just want to fill it. You don't, when I say fill, I don't mean that it has to be covered. If that feels sufficient to you, that you have the sacred space and you have the one item and it's dedicated, and it feels like that minimalistic approach feels right, call it good. Um, but as you're planning your altar and talking to spirit, and putting it out there that, you know, I'm going to create an altar for you, and I, you know, let me know what you want. Look around for objects that strike your fancy, that kind of catch your eye. If you're out walking and there's just a certain pine cone that you just can't stop looking at, pick it up and put it in your pocket for later. I know one of my friends, whenever he dedicates a new altar, he goes to the dollar store and just walks around and says, okay, spirit, I'm here. What would you like? And, you know, just walks around and picks up things that feel, again, like just something bing, you know, all of a sudden stood out. And again, no way to do it wrong. It's not that if something doesn't feel right, or this, you know, altars are fluid, and you're going to be putting things on and you're going to be taking things off over time. So if you pick something up and later it feels like, hey, that doesn't feel right anymore, then take it off. It's not a problem. If you have anything already that's sacred to you, especially like coverings, if a lot of people might have material that they want to put over, you know, an altar, or under an altar, I should say, or even over it. If you want to cover it at night, that's fine too. If you have those things that are already sacred to you, bring them in. You don't have to kind of start fresh and anything, you know, everything is moving forward new. You can bring in things that have been sacred to you already, and that's bringing in your energy and your intention. This is something that's meaningful to me. And then another thing to consider is doing things that you've created. And again, when I go over my altar, I'll show you some things that I've done. Whenever you put your own creativity, you've done a drawing, you've woven something, anything that you've created with your hands, is a really brilliant way to connect in with your altar. And if you feel ready for it, and it's okay if you don't, I'll be teaching more about this down the road. But if you feel like you can dedicate a certain amount of time to a creative project and call in spirit and kind of let that guide you again, and there's no wrong way to do it. Again, if you're like, I'm not sure if I picked the red crayon, or if spirit's telling me red crayon speaking to you, grab the red crayon, you know, whatever it is. So creating something for the dedication of your altar can be a really amazing way to bring your energy into it and have spent a little bit of time with the items. Also consider, if you know that you've got an item, a stone or something that you can carry in your pocket, that you know you're going to pick a date and time to open your altar, consider carrying it around with you a little bit, just to kind of imbue your energy. And whenever you notice it in your pocket, you bring it to mind, you know, reset that intention. This is for my altar that I'm opening to speak to my guide, and put it back in your pocket, and, you know, carry it around for a little bit, sleep with it next to your bed, that sort of thing. So when you open the altar or dedicate the altar, that's going to be, actually, let me pause. Do we have any questions yet before we move on? Okay. So when I always call it an opening. It's more like a dedication. But when you have it all set up and you're ready to call in spirit and say, okay, here's what it is. It's good to set a little bit of planning for that, again, because energy follows intention. And if you do something just spur of the moment, kind of half-assed, like, oh, I'm going to do an altar right now, and you just throw things in it, it doesn't have the same intention. It doesn't have the same energy as setting a date out like a week from now, on Friday, the 27th, you know, whatever. I'm going to set aside some time on my calendar to put time and energy into that. It's a time that I know I'll be alone, that I'll be able to do some create a sacred space. And so think about creating a specific time on your calendar. It doesn't have to be really far out, something a week, 2 weeks, whatever feels right to you. Even a couple of days or a day, there's no wrong answer, again, but just a little bit of time so that you can put some time and energy into that intention instead of just doing it spur of the moment. So you can, again, let spirit know. You can do it right after this call. Say, all right, I'm going to create an altar. Here's when it's going to be. And spirit, between now and then, I would like to dedicate this to getting to know a spirit guide. Could one of those spirit guides show me things in my world that you want to see on the altar? Um, so plan that, and then do a little ceremony around it. So in other words, things that create mood. So candles, incense, if you want to do some smudging with some sage or palo santo, whatever strikes your fancy. No wrong way to do it. And you can add that into your intention to ask spirit what it wants. But anytime, again, it's intention. Energy follows intention. So just set a mood and set some time aside and have a statement that you've written out or that you've memorized, so that, again, you're not half-assing, like, okay, so spirit, I think this is what I'm going to do. Have a solid statement that you're going to say. I am now dedicating this altar to my spirit guide, who I would like to deepen a connection and relationship with. Something of that sort. You can make it your own and have that ready so that you can make that statement out loud, and then make it whatever you want. But the more ceremonial you make it, the more it kind of brings that energy, that excitement, that feel of something special and sacred to it. So if you like to sing, if you like to dance, if you like to flail around, whatever, kind of, and if you're the kind of if you're someone who finds sacred space and just being really silent, then that's 100% fine too. Again, no wrong way to do it. So pick your time, pick your place, pick some sacred objects, and let spirit know before you actually dedicate the altar, to show you some things that they want for that. And then when you actually go to do it, set your statements, set it all up, put your things where you want it to be, and then make your, say your statement, and just trust that it's there. So whether, again, like, as much as we can, we're humans, we can't not put expectation into things, but just trust that it's there. And then when you close, after you've done whatever you want to do, close with it always with gratitude. And even if you didn't feel a thing and you have no idea, and your ego mind is saying, yeah, but I don't think it worked, or I didn't feel anything, just be in gratitude, in a place of gratitude, that spirit showed up, and that it's there, and that it will continue to open up and reveal more of a communication to you. Any questions on that so far? Okay. So then, as far as time at your altar, once you've created it, you've dedicated it, then try as much as you possibly can. We're humans and we have things come up, but as much as you can, to really having a daily practice of showing up to your altar. Again, the more you do it, the more you practice, the better anything is going to get. And so if you spend some time, kind of, again, write yourself a little ceremony. Maybe you just light a candle and an incense and you sing a song, and then you sit in silence. Maybe you rattle or drum, or do something to call in spirit every morning. But again, just setting the intention, I'm here at my altar to get to know my spirit guide. It can be something very simple like that. And then, whatever, if you want it to be active and you want to sing, you want to dance, always just spend a little bit of time in silence. So, even if you do the really active thing, try and also just spend some time just quiet and just noticing what you feel. Because that's really the crux of the relationship, noticing how, if you sit with it, how does it feel? Do you feel a certain sensation in your body? Do you feel a certain sort of energy or vibe around something? Do you have pictures showing up randomly in your head? Those types of things are going to be what you notice over time as that communication from that spirit guide. So just spend some time in silence, kind of noticing that, and pick your time. So I personally love mornings because, again, it sets the tone for the morning. I have time with spirit, and I always end this time at my altar with gratitude. And that's just a really good energy to move into your day with. But pick your day, pick your time, and try and stick to that. It doesn't have to be exactly 9 a.m. every morning, as long it can be when you get up every morning. And if that changes from day to day, fine. Or if you're a night owl and you really just, that time is more sacred to you and that's when you feel it, then do it in the evenings. It's great as an end cap for the day. either morning or night. So whatever feels right to you. Also in the evening, sometimes you can, if you do that before you go to bed, sometimes that really moves into your dream world and you start noticing some shifting and synchronicities in the dream world. So some benefits of doing it in the evening there as well. But try and just stick to it. Again, it doesn't have to be 10 o'clock at night every night, just before you go to bed. And if that changes from day to day, no problem. But try and give at least 5 minutes. If you go longer, absolutely awesome. But 5 minutes is enough to say, if you're just walking by and you're like, hey, altar, hey, guys, I'm here. And then you pass through the room, then that's very half-assing it. And again, think of it as a friend. If you've got a friend and every time you're just like, hey, how's it going? And then you don't even wait for a response. Like, how much is that friend going to be eager to show up? And how are you going to know when that friend has even said anything when you've walked right on by? So again, trust that they showed up, always end with gratitude. And I'm going to create a little document I'm going to post in the topic that's going to have just some cheat sheets of some of this information. But are there any questions so far? Okay. And so again, in the silent time before you end it with gratitude and with the intention. So just always, thank you so much for showing up. You can go now. However you want to say that. You always want to have an intentional beginning and an intentional end. But then do watch how things change in your life, because some spirit really talks through synchronicities. So notice the things out, off, in meditation, they say, to notice things on the cushion and then notice what happens off the cushion. So this is the off the cushion is, after altar hours. Just kind of notice what things you see, especially things repeating themes. You keep seeing things, you find every time you walk out the door, there's a crow feather. That's odd. That doesn't happen all the time. What does that mean? Just noticing it. We don't always need to know what it means, but just trusting the process that spirit's speaking really goes a long way. And again, that's opening up that communication. It's being on that receiving end, because communication needs to be two ways. But sometimes spirit is knocking on our head a little bit, and we're just not paying attention. So try and spend some time paying attention. If you're a meditator or interested in meditating, meditation as a separate practice apart from your altar time helps everything. Literally, there's so many studies that show whatever your goals are, whether you're trying to exercise more or start a habit or stop a habit or change an attitude or anything, meditation always helps, because that quiet time just helps us know where our mind is and what it's doing. So meditation can be a great side practice to help you also notice more things in it'll help you when you're sitting in silence with your altar, noticing what's coming up from spirit, but it'll also help you be more aware and alert and present in the moment to what's going on around you in your everyday life. So look for those kinds of synchronicities and things, and consider meditation. If anyone wants to know more about it, I can talk ad nauseum about meditation, and I'm happy to work with you individually. So just reach out and let me know, and I can talk to you about that. Any questions so far? Okay, so we're getting really close to the end. So I'm just going to say quickly that so once you've got your practice, you've opened your altar, you're practicing with it every day. The next thing is tending. So tending can be anything. It can be, if your spirit has let you know that they like a certain something, then you can bring that thing to it every day. Actually, let me just segue into showing you my altar. That might help. So I know the lighting is not that great. I don't know how well you guys can see it, but like I said, it's an active bookcase. But I have certain objects. Each of these objects are dedicated to specific guides that I work with. And don't judge me on my art quality. This is a drawing of one of the spirit animals that I've worked with. This is a card, like a, actual greeting card of a wolf that I work with. This up here is also a greeting card that just spoke to me. The mask, I don't know how well you can see that. That's a mask that I'm decorating. That's for a separate project. And this is one of the ways that you can really work things that you're doing in your life into it. So that is a course that I'm taking from a local shamanic teacher in Portland. on working with shadow and shadow transformation, which is really awesome. And anyone wants to know more about it, ping me and I will give you information. But that's a mask I'm creating for a really long process. You'll notice, you might or may not notice, there is a shot glass that's full of water. So this is what I'm talking about daily tending. I refresh this every morning. And this is part of my connecting in with my shadow. That's that project that I'm working on. What else do I have? So this this is a little dish with a little cashew. I just take a piece of whatever my breakfast is and give it to this one specific guy. This morning I had cashews, so there you go. This is now a dried, and I'll probably move it out, just piece of rosemary that's off of a bush in my yard. That there's one guy that particularly likes the scent of rosemary. So sometimes when it's dried, I burn it. This is what I burn. It's just a shell that I use to burn incense and things, Palo Santo. And I put rosemary in there and burn that and just blow it out and let it smoke as an incense. For the guy that really likes rosemary, sometimes I'll just use a little bit of rosemary oil and put it on something, or even just on my hands to invoke that during the process. I like candles. These are these two objects are things that I have made. They're just weavings out of pine needles. So again, that's creative, using artistic and creative time to bring that in, that sense of myself, as well as, these took a while to make. They don't look that fancy, I'm not that good at it, but they took a while to make. So that's bringing energy in, of something that was, I dedicated over time and that took time. Any questions on any of that so far? Okay, so as far as tending the altar, as I said earlier, it's a fluid process. Some guides will let you know, hey, I would like a glass of water, or give me a chunk of whatever you ate for breakfast. Sometimes they'll want a shot of whiskey, whatever it is, but just make sure that it's not sitting there getting stagnant and stale. You want to practice making sure that you're emptying that and replacing that on a regular basis, just keeping it fresh. And like I said, things go up and then things come off. Sometimes spirit guides that I work with, I only work with during a certain project. And then when that project is complete, then I thank that guide and I move that out. We'll be learning more about those types of deeper practices down the road, but just know it's fluid and it's fresh, and you want to keep it clean and dusted. And if it starts to feel like I'm picking up every third item I see in my life, and there's 20 rocks and 15 pine cones and 100 flowers, and it's starting to look dried and smell bad, then just do some cleaning and ask spirit to be there with you and just intuitively pick things off or put new things on. But it's fluid, it's there for you, it's down the road. I would say in the beginning, just right now, when you're new, focus on getting to know one specific spirit guide. And just dedicating to that communication. And then in the future, we can talk about how to use your altar for projects that you're working on, use your altar for qualities in yourself that you're trying to strengthen, qualities in yourself that you're trying to chuck out the door and stop doing. All of those things can be imbibed by spirit, but first you need to really just get to know your spirit guide and kind of what they sound like. So any questions so far? Comments? Anything? Okay. So before we end this recorded section, I just want to remind everyone we want to be a community. We want to support each other. If you're the hermit type that doesn't like to communicate, I hear you. I am that way 100%. But we're in a boat together, and as we rise together, and we're there to support one another. And sometimes it just helps with accountability. Just habit building requires doing something over and over, and that takes time and practice. And when we're doing it in front of others, we have more of a tendency to do it. So if you feel comfortable, and you absolutely don't have to, share in the post, or there's a topic for altar setup and tending. Share your plans, share pictures, share what you're doing, ask questions. I'm not going to force anyone. If you're like, absolutely, I will not do that, then that's okay as well. Just consider it, putting yourself out there a little bit, because we all rise together. So yeah, everything that we do for ourselves, we do for others. It helps one another, and that's the purpose of the community. So any questions on that? All right. So I'm going to end the recording.